This is the last person I'm ever going to hire that's not AI native. I just know in my heart that the future is people are going to be using AI to be extremely productive, and they can do things that nobody else can at a speed that nobody else can, at a quality that nobody else can. A lot of CEOs that I've talked to or who talked to, in 2024, they told their team, we need to start doing AI. And inevitably, all CEOs say this. Every company that I've talked to at the engineering level, at the product level, they're like, yeah, it's kind of this thing, or maybe we can put this layer on, and then it just doesn't move that quickly. And then in 2025, the same CEO said, I gave you all 2024 and we should play around, and like nothing's happened. And now I see the whole industry moving forward. And the moment they start losing sales, that is when it gets real. They say, was in a sales call, we lost the sale to this AI feature. And all the engineers go back, or the product people go, this feature isn't even real AI. It's like so basic. It's like, it's only a wrapper around this and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter because you lost a sale.
I'm really excited to have this conversation today with a person with whom I am lucky to work side by side every day. This is Bruce Young. For those who don't know, Bruce is CPO at 2A2B1, and previously he led product teams at fintech companies such as Triumph and Forge. And you actually helped companies to strategize the merger that led to IPO. So I think that's impressive. So happy to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Awesome, Anna. Nice to see you again in a little bit of a different context, but we chat about AI all the time, and how to bring the company along with AI and just what it can do for not just our organization, but every organization, whether it's Siden, other design firms, tech companies, non-tech companies. I actually recently talked to a yacht company, and they were interested how they could use AI to help make their process better.
Great. I must confess that I'm actually your fan because I really love your insightful posts on LinkedIn. And pretty recently, you've posted about how talent stack is collapsing and how it's being messy to create products into 2025. And we know that the biggest change is AI, but how AI actually changes how product teams operate. What's the impact on Way2B1?
When I look at people in general and what outcomes we want, because we really want to focus on what outcomes and what's differentiated and how to operate more effectively. I start looking at what are the skills that we have and what are the skills that we need. In most organizations, pre-AI, everybody does it the same way, which is you have a bunch of designers, they create a system from nothing, and when they create it from nothing, they don't use the system because it doesn't exist. And they just put together a bunch of Figmas, they do their best, and then it gets passed along to, let's say, the engineers, and then they work on it, and then there's some really long feedback cycle, and it takes 3 months to build, and then 3 months later, the designer's like, oh, I get to actually use the product that I designed, and they can go in and start clicking around. But inevitably, something's got lost in translation. Even if nothing has been lost and it's a perfect copy of what you thought you were building, you actually realize you didn't know exactly the perfect world, right? And so working with static mockups, I think, is really limiting because you don't actually get to click around and see the flow of information and the user interacting with the system. And so I think the skill set is different now, where we want to use a lot more real code prototypes where the designer can actually click around and learn about the system as they're using it. We can inject a lot of synthetic data to make sure things are very, very realistic. So if you design, a basic CRM page, you're like, oh, what organization does this person work for? You put it over here on the top left. And then in real life, you realize, wait, in our system, everybody has 5 organizations or 10 organizations. Or they're a service provider and they serve 100 clients. All of a sudden, the thing that you build with on the top left doesn't work anymore because you need to list 100 items, right? And you never do that because you didn't look at the actual kind of real/synthetic data. So I think the skill set is overall designers having much more ability to actually code in terms of, and when I say code, I mean utilize AI to produce workable functional prototypes that they can iterate on. That's going to be much more important. The ability for people to understand the clients are going to be much more important. The ability for engineers to deeply understand customers and work on product and product features, as well as do basic designs, is much more important. So basically, you have these 3 stools that use EPD or PDE, product engineering design. They're all merging a little bit into one. but everybody will have their own specialty.
Now it feels like you need to step out of your comfort zone for sure, like to embrace the change and try and develop new skills. But it also changes the processes and the how in general company approaches using the AI, because you like it's not only about designers showing these prototypes to customers and then iterating on the feedback. It sounds like a bigger shift into mindset of the company and company culture. And I think the transformation is hard path. Like it's not a quantum leap, it's a journey. And every company can have different approaches. And there are two ways how technology can be adopted. Either it's top down and pushed by leadership, or it's kind of evolving from the grounds and kind of evolution rather than kind of pushing the technology. Pushing it upwards actually is faster, but it can have a resistance, as you mentioned, and sometimes even sabotage. Evolution is slower and sometimes chaotic. So how do you think companies, like what steps companies should do in order to kind of embrace new ways of doing building products?
I think fundamentally you definitely need a champion. Champion is somebody with enough influence or ability to influence that they can move things along. No matter what you do at the bottom level, unless the leadership it doesn't have to be immediate, but they need to eventually see and believe there's a better path. That, if everybody is happy with the way things are going, it's not going to change. It's just not. If the company realizes what we wish to be true is not true, what we wish to be the future is not existing today, only then will they be open to change. There's a lot of ways to reach a person with that message. But ultimately, I think you do need to convince the executives that they should go on this really annoying, hard, painful journey, because not everyone is going to come along. And there's going to be arguments. And then you're going to have to deal with the arguments as a leader. And you're going to have to be like, oh, this person thinks this, and this person thinks this, and they don't agree. And this person, all of a sudden, the value stack kind of shifts apart, where maybe everyone before was on the same page. Now that people are not on the same page, it's a huge problem, right? You either have to get them on the same page, or eventually somebody is either going to leave or they're going to be ejected from the culture of the organization. So I think ultimately leadership is really important, but the true answer is, as a change agent, you actually have to do both, no matter what. Because if you only convince the leaders, they can try to convince everyone below them, but you basically, the feeling that you want to get, I think, is a slow building crescendo where people are like, oh, I'm playing with this. Oh, it's helpful for me. Oh, and slowly, one at a time, through individual conversation by individual conversation, it slowly builds and more people start talking about it. And then you look around and like, a lot of people are using AI and a lot of people think there's a better future and we should do something about it. And you're just part of the herd. And because let's say however big your organization is, the best method is convincing one person at a time. However, that also takes a lot of time. So you need to know where to spend your efforts and realizing pretty quickly who has influence, who doesn't, who's convincible and who's not, and then spending your time wisely.
Yeah, that's very wise. I think that, can you also share your very practical experience? Like what exact steps you've taken to kind of create an environment where people can play with AI and be kind of feel safe in this environment?
Number one is you have to become an expert yourself. And when I say expert, I mean only more expert than people around you, because you have to show them. Because I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about AI is that it's a switch, right, where you turn on or off, or we're using AI or we're not. I think one of the most common refrains are, oh, I use ChatGPT, so I know what I'm doing, right? And oh, I know AI is not good because I tried it and it's not. It didn't give me what I wanted. And there's very little self-reflection or playing with the tool and realizing I have a beginner's mindset. Maybe I'm not doing something right. To me, AI is really like a musical instrument where you don't play. Nobody plays it because it's brand new. And over time, you have to learn how to play it, what's better, what combinations work, what doesn't work. I have some really, really bright friends who are, dabbling in AI and like, yeah, it just doesn't really work. It doesn't give me what I want. And then a month later, they're like, oh, I just realized that there's this model called O3, and all of a sudden everything's way better, right? And I'm like, oh, well, what have you been using this full time? And they're like, oh, I've been using, GPT 4.0, which is, I mean, a year old at this point. And I think 4.0 is terrible. I think it's almost useless, where it doesn't give me what I want. It hallucinates all the time. And it's something as simple as, ChatGPT made 4.0 the default model. So most people, most of the time, they use the default model. And by default, they're using kind of the worst one. And they don't explore the different models. They don't explore like thinking, like the reasoning models or Anthropic. And I think there's a lot to learn there. So going back to practical things, you have to really know your craft and try to articulate this. You have to be able to show what's possible and share it freely. I think going from the bottom up, it's individually talking to people saying, hey, let's do this together, right? Here's my process, show me your process, and then looking at the outcome together. Because at the end of the day, when you actually listen to people's quotes, even the resistors, when you start showing them things, they're like, yeah, I actually really hated doing that. Like, I really hated writing this document. I really hated setting up my environment, and AI figured it out for me. And geez, like now I can focus on the fun stuff, right? And that's where you want to get to. And from the leadership perspective, I think speaking to as high of a person as you can, getting aligned and saying, because I think everyone, especially at the leadership level, like a lot of CEOs that I've talked to or here talked to, in 2024, they told their team, we need to start doing AI. And inevitably, all CEOs say this. Like, we're going to fall behind, we need to start doing AI. Engineering teams start looking at it. But they can't really articulate exactly what to do. And every company that I've talked to at the engineering level, at the product level, they're like, yeah, it's kind of this thing, or maybe we could put this layer on, and then it just doesn't move that quickly. And then in 2025, the same CEOs said, okay, I gave you all of 20, much nicer, but I gave you all of 2024 and we should play around, and like nothing's happened. And now I see the whole industry moving forward. And the moment they start losing sales, that is when it gets real. They say, was in a sales call, we lost the sale to this AI feature. And all the engineers go back, or the product people, like, this feature isn't even real AI. It's like so basic. It's like, it's only a wrapper around this and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter because you lost a sale. And then the CEOs are starting to say, okay, we have to do this. Like, instead of suggesting it, I'm mandating it. And you put more resources. And if you look at something, even a company like Shopify, right? Shopify, a huge company, very successful. I think last year, the CEO, they said, we suggest everybody use AI. And they just, I think a month ago, came out with a new policy that says, you must use AI. AI is core to our features. You can never budget unless you explain why AI can't help you accomplish this. It is going to be part of your performance review, right? This is going to be something that we accept as a culture. I think it's very scary for people, but ultimately it's both top down and bottom up. And even our company, Would It Be One, we've been talking about an AI policy. Having an explicit policy that the leadership all agrees on is also really important. But it's these things to slowly get people on the same track.
I loved so many pieces from this kind of monologue, but things that resonated with me the most, I think that it's both, like both directions, and the power of stories, like being very transparent about everyone's experiments. And this is what can sparkle, because when I hear that my colleague is exploring AI capabilities and he shares his experiments, and it kind of inspires me to do the same. I want to also share our story, or kind of our journey at Sidon, how we tried to adopt AI in our journey. So I think it's all started with visionary from from CEO, that because he's also AI enthusiast, and as you mentioned, like playing around and trying to be the leader and showing it to the company, and it sparked the interest in few areas. I think like 2 or 5% of our team actually was really inspired and passionate about trying to adopt new tools, but it didn't kind of spread around until we next step was to communicate the strategy. Like, we acknowledge that this is very important, and if we don't change, we probably could fall out the market, and we can acknowledge that this is kind of the demand from the market. This is like something new that we need to adopt. And still, it like, although it was communicated, it still didn't have like huge impact. And the next step that I think actually brought the impact to our team is tactical level, when we agreed on next steps, very concrete, like education for the team, workshops, mentorship. Like, we'll have a hackathon tomorrow on kind of exploring, like, for the team to play around and try to build something collectively, collaboratively, and like sitting everyone in the room and having everything like hands-on experience in the groups and kind of comparing the results. So that's kind of the things that we're trying to inject in the processes, because what I'm seeing also, there are different, like, as an agency, we have different projects with different companies. And there are companies that acknowledge this urgency and they're trying to incorporate those new processes and tools in their design process. But they're also kind of more rigid, or maybe they acknowledge this urgency, but they don't know how to incorporate it. And also people come up with different excuses, like our product manager, we don't have time to create AI prototypes, we need to deliver figmas to our developers, I don't want to spend my free time for that, our product manager does not require that, and so on. So I think there are many excuses on personal side and also excuses for products and companies. So if you could recommend what could be the small experiment or next step, maybe new approach to adopt, how companies can try to incorporate that into their processes starting tomorrow.
So what I love about what you said is, it's actually the right way to do it, is like having the CEO or a leader really bring people along. And it's, again, it's a really hard process, but like that is showing the intention and direction of the company. I think from an individual level, getting people to realize they need to adapt. I've already decided with my last hire, I'm like, this is the last person I'm ever going to hire that's not AI native or uses AI for everything. And I just know in my heart that the future is people are going to be using AI to be extremely productive, and they can do things that nobody else can at a speed that nobody else can, at a quality that nobody else can. And I can't go back to the old world where we do things not enabled by AI, like not at that level of quality. It's not even about AI. It's just like, it's very clear to me that the people who use AI are an enormous tier, not even close, above the people who don't. And so I think from a personal level, I think spending time with people and saying, getting them to understand this is the future of your career. I mean, if you're about to retire, then maybe not, right? But if you're still in your career, this change is happening and you need to get on board. And anytime somebody says they don't have time, I kind of get it, but the investment in time is going to pay off forever. And it's almost like, as a product person, I realized when you go observe somebody, and probably as a designer too, and you go, tell me about your problems and tell me how to make you more effective. And usually they can say some things, but they actually don't tell you a lot because they don't even know that it could be more effective. So the true way to do it is to actually sit down with them and watch them do their work. And you'll see somebody pull up Google Sheets and then type in something on every line and do this thing. And then you'll be like, it's actually a formula for this. You could just type in the formula and then it'll actually do it all. You don't even have, but they've been doing this for years and they wouldn't tell you, oh, I wish there was a formula where I could calculate all this stuff, because they don't know. And so I think really showing people what's possible is one thing. The other thing is praise. Like, you have to praise, and that's from the bottom up. From the top down, praising and promoting people who can do work in the new world is it's a sign, right? And if you really value the ability to use AI, you have to give those people promotions, whatever, even over other designers where it might be even better, but don't use AI. Because if you don't follow through, you don't really care about it, right? So you have to actually follow through. So, I think showing people the future, being excited about the future is really important. I think, just in our example in Way to Be one thing I'm always amazed about is, we have, a designer, he'll build clickable prototypes and mockups. And, I can do the same things. I built clickable prototypes and mockups. And, we'll show customers and customers will be like, that. Like, I pull something up on the screen, I don't even say anything. They're like, this is what I wanted the whole time. This is amazing. And a lot of times it's not even mine. It's what the designer did. And they're like, when I see this is blah, 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 this is what I want. And we went from a world where, like, probably the designers don't even know. Because if this is a live prototype, you go to a website, you go to a link, they don't have to demonstrate it. Somebody else is showing their work. The designers, they don't even know that their work is being spread all over. That's like literal CEOs of many companies, worth billions of dollars, executives are literally going to the website they made and like clicking around and trying. And I think that's just an amazing thing that we need to communicate better. And it's always hard to communicate because as an individual, especially a designer, there's this is like a filter, especially if you're, a contractor, right? Like you're not in the room. So I think as a leader, I try to do a better. I need to do a better job at that as well. Is just to explain that because I've been with our CEO. He'll walk like, oh, like, I'm going to show them this, and then he just pulls it up, right? And it's like this is amazing work. So I think those are the few things that I would do. But ultimately, people need to decide for themselves and understand it's the future. And I would say from the company perspective, it's you want to get as many people on board as quickly as possible, but you cannot. Because anytime you're doing anything bleeding edge or leading or trying to create change, by definition, by definition, not everybody is on board because you're pushing the boundaries, right? On average, everybody's average. So if you're pushing the boundaries, you're going to be not average, which means you're going to be different. And which means there is that question about who can come along with us and who can't, and how do we really want to shape the future of our company?
What are defining skills? Whom companies should hire, and what skills in the skill set they need to see and find to find the proper match?
I think I'm much more focused now on. It's weird to say values. It's weird to say culture, but it's like a vibe. Okay. So number one is they have to be curious. Okay. They have to be curious about new technologies, new processes. They have to not only be curious, but they have to use the tools. My ideal hiring process would be, hey, let's create an app together. I want you to create an app in 1 hour from scratch, and I'm going to watch you. To me, it's like, let's build a basic app, a to-do app, a checklist, something. I'm not talking about like a crazy whole web app. It's like a very, very simple consumer app. And then you can see where they use AI, where they don't. What do they do under the time pressure, right? Because like in only an hour, you're not going to be able to do certain things, right? And you can see, you're going to watch them make trade-offs. They're going to trade off between quality and speed. And you can hear them think about what do the customers want versus not. I'm looking for builders, which is different. Builders with a focus on an expertise. So to me, a builder is somebody who says, how do I build? How do I craft? Like this is an artist. I actually think designers are going to be much more influential and powerful and have a bigger role than they do today. Today, a lot of people think about designers as, oh, they give me that piece of paper that I look at to like code against kind of thing, right? But designer, like the future is about artistry. It's about emotion. Yeah. You don't have to create anything new. How do you take what's existing and like bring it together in a novel way and craft a user experience that compels a customer to pay you money? Okay. And to me, designers are inherently a little bit better at that. I think they think more in terms of experiences and how to craft something. And so I think I'm looking across the board. I'm looking for builders, not a designer. A builder who is an eye for design. A builder with an eye for product. A builder can deliver code.
Yeah, like maybe we have deviated, but it also touched like how can companies stand out, and in addition to just introducing AI, what will differentiate like understanding and proper use of AI, like not just like we have speech to text or I don't know, like summary in your description, but like this is what is like AI native. Like we're building not only features inside or some modules that have AI functionality, but kind of having AI at its core.
I mean, obviously, everything results in sales. Okay, that's the key. So every company should be very, very focused on sales because the question is, what is strategy? Like, what's the difference between strategy and planning? Planning is what you can control. I can plan my resources. I can plan my roadmap. I can plan, what I'm going to build in what order. And it's very safe and comfortable because you can control it. And I think we often confuse planning for strategy. Always like, oh, the roadmap, this and that, right? And like, what are we going to do in the future, right? Strategy is trying to control the uncontrollable. And there's one thing you cannot control, and that is the customer. You can't make a customer give you money. You can't force them to. The only thing you can do is build a suite of features, build a suite of whatever in your company to compel them to give you money, right? It's very soft. You can't control how the external environment sees you, right? When somebody's deciding, oh, okay, what do they think about? Do they say the low cost provider? Do they think it's the highest quality? Do they associate you with AI? You can't force them. I wish I could go out and say and have forced everyone to be like, man, Bruce is the most handsomest person in the world, right? And it's just not possible. But what you can do is to try to say, oh, let me try to dress better. Let me try to do this. Let me try to work out. And over time, you want to compel people. It's a way of controlling, again, the uncontrollable. And so for me, strategy is more if you don't like, if you're not viewed the way you want to be viewed, if you're not selling the way you want to be selling, if you're not getting the results in whatever, it could be personal life, whatever, but for business, if you're not getting the results that you want, if you're not getting the right customers, your strategy needs to change. And your strategy is a collection of what you're actually doing. So if you're not happy with the results, you have to change what you're doing today. Right? And so ultimately what AI will do is enable new strategies that have never been created before. New ways to compel customers to view you in a certain way, new ways to compel customers to give you their money. I mean, I have a story where I was trying to hire a design. This is before you guys hire a design, firm to help us. And I asked them, how do you, especially with assets, we're looking for a bunch of assets. And like, hey, how do you generate them? And we're looking for basically AI generated assets. Like, can you use AI to help us generate assets and like go through the whole process and get them exactly how we want? And they're like, oh yeah, we don't really do that. I'm like, okay, thank you. But, and it didn't even feel like they had an interest in being like, hey, this is a new thing, right? So wouldn't it be amazing if everyone saw signs like, wow, if you want to build AI experiences, if you want to do it quickly with high quality, if you want to change the way people experience, like when you go to a customer call or instead of showing them a mock-up of Figma, if you want them to use a real app and be able to experience this and emotionally connect, we know where to go, right? We know what agency to go with. So I think that is part of the strategy as well. Yeah.
I think that you've concentrated on the strategy as a kind of path to win clients, and it's more external path. But how this strategy can be communicated to the team?
Depends on where you are as a company. The earlier you are, like, do you have product market fit or not? If you don't have product market fit, it becomes very difficult to communicate the strategy because you don't know the strategy. And every single customer call, I try to go in with intentionality to discover new things. And it's about, the process is really weird because it's about showing them things and observing their feedback, right? It's about trying to have different types of conversations and figuring out what resonates with them. Like, for example, one thing that I've more recently realized is for our customer set, we've always really been focusing on internally. Like, hey, you could be more efficient internally. You could do this internally. And then when you really look at them, a lot of them care more about their customers and their clients. So all of a sudden, I had this realization, like, all we do is we talk about them. We never talk about their clients. And so I started testing out different messages of saying, I know you love your clients. I know you want to deliver a priceless experience to them. And here's how. We can help you do it. No other company can help you deliver a priceless experience to your clients, give them value that they never got before, make them, turn that first customer, your client's first experience into long-lasting trust. And then I see them perk up a little bit, right? And at the end of the day, it was just, because we're all like, oh, it'll make us better. Like, we're very us focused. And I think a lot of companies, they do care about their clients a lot. And so I think one is going over discovering that, and two is communicating it. Is I definitely think customer quotes are super important. So as much as possible, I try to record every conversation with a customer because everybody has their own view of the world and it comes through this bias lens, whether you like it or not. But when you start quoting customers and say, this is what they said, I think it lands better. I think painting a picture of exactly not only who we are or where we're going, but what we're not. Right? So over time, I'm like, all right, well, where are we really focusing? We could focus solely on the back end part. We can focus solely on the customer part. There's another way, which I think for us is the best, is the intersection between client communication and delivering a great experience, as well as the transition to their internal systems and internal usage. But if we only focus on the internal usage, I don't think it's a winner, nor do I think only the client is a winner either. There's a lot of unexplored space because for client experiences, it's two things. It's what they experience, but also how it helps your company. And it requires an extreme personalization to both parties because both parties are unique. And that leaves a lot of room to build software that hasn't been created, that's tailored to the company. And you can own a lot of the data. And I know in the AI future that data is going to be super important because code is cheaper and cheaper, but personalizing things with data is going to be really important. And owning that connection point between the data is really important, especially since the alternatives are so poor.
Yeah. And why I think it's really important to communicate vision and strategy, because if everyone on a team can impact the product decisions, it can be pulled in different directions. Like everyone can contribute, and one's perspective, or as you mentioned, like everyone is biased, and one understood the call and the context in one way and another person in another, and there could be like contradicting and conflicting ideas, and then we need to kind of go through exercise and slice it, evaluate, and like have a battle between different concepts and test them and validate. So like this is why I think that communicating the vision can also kind of narrow down the kind of brainstorming and direction that for the team who is actively kind of impacting the product decisions.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point. I think there's a lot more that can and should be done at the team level. One is, again, okay, so constant repeating, I think, is really important. Getting everybody saying the same message is really important. I think one thing that I think about a lot is if I ask every single group head, right, customer success, engineering, product design, whatever, what are they? Will they all say the same thing? And the answer right now is no, right? So that is really important. Getting everyone on the same page. Then at the team level, making the goals really clear, the outcomes really clear. Hey, I think something that we've been trying a little bit more recently is basically saying, look, I don't care how we get there, but there's two requirements. Number one is I need to be able to create a task in less than 1 second or in 1 second. That is the outcome that we want. There's so many ways to do it. You could do it with voice. You could do it with this. You could do it with a picture. And the second one was like, hey, let's create a multimodal way of creating multiple things at the same time. Okay, whether it's through text or voice or images. Right? And I quite like that because it gives the team enough space to say, oh, I can do whatever I want. Like I can create it however I want. But they also know the ultimate outcome, which is it has to be done in this amount of time. It has to be done in this way. Right. And so I think if we can get better at that, identifying the true requirements and then letting the team experiment and prototype. And, I've always said prototype and prune. So like doing a lot of prototypes, figuring out what's better, and then pruning the ones that don't really work.
Yeah, I really like this advice. Like understanding the outcomes and also working with a problem, like what problem we are trying to solve, like what opportunity to capture. That's great. Unfortunately, we need to wrap up. That's like, I would love to continue this conversation even more, but maybe we can also talk about your recommendations for product leaders. What concrete steps you can recommend that they could start operationalizing AI in their team? Like what they can do tomorrow, for instance, to start incorporating that in their work every day.
So I think step one is using it yourself, right? But then after that, you really have to start helping the team, and that is where I think it gets a little more tricky. So I think a few things are something that your company is doing, having the entire company do hackathons with a specific theme in mind, I think is really great. The other thing I would say is it's very helpful, I think, to have what we call a center of excellence almost, where like every 2 weeks you talk about people's experiences with AI. And the hope here is that people will bring in and contribute their own experiences, because from a product person, when I say a message about AI in engineering, it doesn't land the same way as when an engineer says that, right? So you need to hear diverse perspectives. you need to hear, it's one thing to hear a designer be like, oh, you engineers, you should use AI for design and you'll be fine. Like, okay, you don't know about engineering. So like, I don't. And then you hear another engineer saying, oh yeah, I just do this and the design's great and this is how I do it. And these are the questions I ask. And all of a sudden like, oh, it's possible for you. It's possible for me. So I think creating a center of excellence where people can discuss it amongst themselves is really good. Information is sharing really good, and really celebrating it as a company, I think, is probably the most important thing. Is people don't like doing things that are risky across the board. If it's going to risk your career, if I build something, or if I write a document with AI, and then my boss is like, "Oh, this was written with AI," they don't have to say anything else. They don't even have to say, "Oh." They could just say, "Oh, this was written with AI," and immediately I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm not going to do that anymore." Like I got to hide it, right? Because I heard that comment, right? And so creating a culture where people celebrate and use AI and you push it forward, that is really the most important thing. Um, and then as an individual, I think it's just getting better as an individual. And once you can start delivering experiences and showing things that other people can't do, people will notice and they will pay attention and they will talk about it.
Yeah. Thank you for this great inspirational conversation and a ton of practical advices that people can adopt. It was I was really excited about this conversation. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me. And then maybe in the future, we'll do part two. We'll see.
I hope, yes. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.